Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. Even if in winter things tend to freeze, we got the world monopoly on trees, and our country's bordered by 3 different seas.
Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. We invented the zipper, we got expertise. We made insulin to combat disease. Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please.
We're together, monarchy, the US has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French together, wine and cheese, koalas, you with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian.
Et si ce n'était pas assez, on a 2 langues officielles, l'anglais et le français. Ooh la la.
Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. Where else do you find mounted police or go to the hospital and not pay fees? I know that you wanna be Canadian, please.
And when fresh water's in high demand, we got the world's largest supply on hand. So you know that we can make a pretty good friend, but it's even better if you can.
We're together, monarchy, the US has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French together, wine and cheese, koalas, you with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian.
So you're thinking to yourself, how do I live in this beautiful country? Well, I've got some steps for you to follow.
Step 1, lose the gun. Step 2, buy a canoe. Step 3, live multiculturally. Step 4, you ready? There is no more. We got beavers, caribou, and moose. We got buffalo, bears, a Canadian goose. And we're sorry about Celine Dion, but she did do that good song for James Cameron. Cameron.
We're together, monarchy, the US has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French together, wine and cheese, koalas, you with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The Greeks all chill with Socrates, can build a wall like the Chinese, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. In Kenya they have safaris with mixed lots of other countries, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. Even if in winter things tend to freeze, we got the world monopoly on trees, and our country's bordered by 3 different seas.
Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. We invented the zipper, we got expertise. We made insulin to combat disease. Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please.
We're together, monarchy, the US has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French together, wine and cheese, koalas, you with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian.
Et si ce n'était pas assez, on a 2 langues officielles, l'anglais et le français. Ooh la la.
Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. Where else do you find mounted police or go to the hospital and not pay fees? I know that you wanna be Canadian, please.
And when fresh water's in high demand, we got the world's largest supply on hand. So you know that we can make a pretty good friend, but it's even better if you can.
We're together, monarchy, the US has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French together, wine and cheese, koalas, you with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian.
So you're thinking to yourself, how do I live in this beautiful country? Well, I've got some steps for you to follow.
Step 1, lose the gun. Step 2, buy a canoe. Step 3, live multiculturally. Step 4, you ready? There is no more. We got beavers, caribou, and moose. We got buffalo, bears, a Canadian goose. And we're sorry about Celine Dion, but she did do that good song for James Cameron. Cameron.
We're together, monarchy, the US has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French together, wine and cheese, koalas, you with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The Greeks all chill with Socrates, can build a wall like the Chinese, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. monopoly on trees, and our country's bordered by 3 different seas.
Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. We invented the zipper, we got expertise. We made insulin to combat disease. Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please.
We took out the monarchy, the U.S. has the money, but I know that you wanna be Canadian. The French will get the wine and cheese, koalas chew with the Aussies, but I know that you wanna be Canadian.
Et si ce n'était pas assez, on a 2 langues officielles, l'anglais et le français. Ouh là là.
Yeah, I know that you wanna be Canadian, please. Where else do you find mountains?
Here in our capital city, families and small businesses have been enduring illegal obstruction of their neighborhoods, occupying streets, harassing people, breaking the law. This is not a peaceful protest.
Hey there, bud. Welcome to the Canuck side of the pond, yeah? Yeah.
Hi, Blue. Hi,
Oh!
Terrible Cat.
Hi, Box.
How
Hey,
you
Box. Box, 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 box. We gotta work on a new intro, cause, you know. Box! Hi, Owen. Wait, why are you down there and not in here? And hi, Credible Threat. Oh, and I got your message. When you said Tuesday, did you mean tomorrow? And what are we doing again? Oh, God. I'm so spacey. And we got Jen.
Hello. Hi, Big Girl.
Yo,
Hi,
Joe.
Nice
Yo, mass creation broadcasts.
Or Reason for short.
Yeah, pretty much. Awesome. Yeah, there we go. I got it. Awesome. I have no clue what I was supposed to be doing tomorrow, but apparently it'll be a Credible Threat sidekick. Oh, St. David's Day, right? Somebody explain to me what St. David's Day is again? Because I can't remember.
Oh, she's at her mom's
my
till
mom's
Tuesday. Okay.
Until right. Okay. Yep, I totally remembered that. Totally. So
I knew she was doing something. I just didn't know what until. And I remember it was something where she was just like, deep breaths and count to 10 and you'll be fine. So we'll entertain you, Elwyn.
yeah, actually today, Elowen will be very much entertained because I decided to give everybody a treat. Box Sigh, hit me up tomorrow and I'll make the edit. I love you so much, Box. Oh my God, everybody, bow down and praise the tech god Box and kiss his toes. And if you have a really annoying virgin nearby, kill him as a sacrifice to the tech master gods Box. Which I still don't know how he does all of the things without any fingers. Just saying, because he's a box. He's a blue box. Kind of like the recycling bin, but not as plasticky. What I hate about this phone is that I can't play YouTube in a small window while I do other stuff. Can't help you there, bud. Like, yeah, don't. I am drinking my Labatt Blue right now. Really? Really? You drink Labatt Blue? 'Cause I haven't heard of anybody actually liking that beer since the 90s. I remember when the commercials used to be, yeah, the good stuff. And now everybody's like, ew. Whereas me, it's still my beer.
You know what? I remember once upon a really long time ago, Canadian Dry was actually okay. And then they made that commercial. They made that fucking commercial. And then they changed the recipe. And it was like, oh, why?
Why would you do that?
Yeah, why? I don't get it. I mean, like, Corona I get. Like, Corona's a gross beer too, but it's a thing. You're supposed to use lime with it.
No.
Like, you're supposed to shove a wedge of lime in it, and that's how you're supposed to drink it. I'm like, okay, it's a peace thing. It's still gross, but I get it.
Oh.
Yeah, I used to like Canada Dry, but then they changed the recipe, and now I don't drink any beer anymore.
Oh, wow.
I think
it
I've
says
had an
Brooklyn-
Asian beer since.
Oh, you mean Labatt Blue was always a USA beer? Well, that just makes me sad.
I mean, Budweiser's also American. Budweiser's American.
This bud's for you. Ugh.
I like the commercials. You know, I never really cared for the beer, but the commercial is totally worth it. Budweiser does good commercials.
I drink brains? You a zombie? Wait, zombies don't eat wait, yes they do. Zombies are the ones that eat brains. That's right.
Well, that depends on your Rule 34, because they could eat other things.
The fuck?
Rule 34 for everything. Trust me, you don't want to go down that route, but when you do, and you're like, wow, okay, somebody had a lot of free time.
You know what? This is true. But it
Also,
has
blame Japan.
the maple leaf at the top. I know! It's like false advertising, man! Or maybe we just outsource. We're like, fuck it. We don't want to brew our own beer. We'll make the Americans do it. Even though American beer is like water. Or
It's not that. I think it's more of just like all things. Their good beer probably stays at home. You know, that's the stuff they make at home. But the stuff they're really excited and proud of, and we're just like, okay. You know what that stuff's really good for? Shoving in a can and then stuffing it up a bird's butt.
yes.
Beer can chicken.
Yeah, oh, I love beer can chicken. It is so good.
That's right,
anyways.
that's what you do. You take your shit beer, and you take your can, and then you violate a chicken.
Yep.
And then you cook it. So technically you violated it like 3 times at that point.
Yeah, but it's tasty.
Right?
So I got a special treat, especially for the Elohins, because we all know that everybody loves the science. Even though you really can't follow the science completely, because, like, that means that you're just gonna disband your code of ethics. So, suck it, nerds! But, there was the science guy named, what was his name? Norman Deutsch.
Okay, a real one, okay.
Norman Deutsch. Anyways, he wrote something called Needle Points, and I thought I would play it and then pause it and either yell at it or commentate, and you guys can disseminate the information for yourselves. It will be a very intellectually dry, insane, comedic, I don't know, some kind of weird thing that I decided would be interesting, but when I think something's interesting, it doesn't always end up being interesting. So, if you guys like what I'm about to push play on, let me know, and I will find more. All of them more. Okay, now I just gotta find the right button. I think it's this one. It's this button! Oh wait, I gotta double click on the thingamajigger. Window capture. Yeah! And then this? Yeah! Okay. Okay. Now,
Alright. Yep, you're showing it.
yeah, now I just gotta hope that it's loud enough for people. 'Cause I don't know how to fix that, so I'm hoping it's loud enough for people. If it's not, I will cry backs, and maybe he can come fix it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this guy.
Needle points. Why so many are hesitant to get the COVID vaccines and what we can do about it. By Norman Deutsch, read by the author.
Yeah.
October 27th, 2021.
It was published by some thingamajigger at some place for some reason. I don't know why. It just was. Okay, get to the good stuff. Needle points is red in this video and stuff.
Since my days in medical school, I've had a fascination with the kernel insight behind vaccination. That one could successfully expose a person to an attenuated version of a microbe that would prepare and protect them for a potentially lethal encounter with the actual microbe. I marveled at how it tutors an immune system that, like the brain, has memory and a kind of intelligence, and even something akin to foresight. But I loved it for a broader reason, too.
By the way, the idea that our immune system has foresight, weird, considering what foresight actually is, and microbes don't have brains. But, just saying.
At times, modern science and modern medicine seem based on a fantasy that imagines the role of medicine is to conquer nature, as though we can wage a war against all microbes with antimicrobials to create a world where we will no longer suffer from infectious disease.
Which is bullshit.
Vaccination is not based on that sterile vision, but its opposite. It works with our educable immune system, which evolved millions of years ago, to deal with the fact that we must always coexist with microbes.
Which, by the way, in and of itself is interesting because we used the vaccine to end COVID, and that we don't have to live with COVID if we all get vaccinated 100%, right? Yet, vaccines were created to live with the virus, not defeat the virus. Just,
It helps us to use our own resources to protect ourselves. Doing so is in accord with the essential insight of Hippocrates, who understood that the major part of healing comes from within, that it is best to work with nature and not against it. And yet, ever since they were made available, vaccines have been controversial, and it has almost always been difficult to have a non-emotionally charged discussion about them. One reason is that in humans and other animals, any infection can trigger an archaic brain circuit in most of us called the behavioral immune system, or BIS.
which behavioral immune system, which is interesting because the idea of using immune system means that you're immune from something, whereas a behavior, how can you really be immune from a behavior? And, side note, look at idea pathogens as the problem, because there are such things as idea pathogens, which, thanks to the internet, are just abundant. It's great.
It's a circuit that's triggered when we sense we may be near a potential carrier of disease, causing disgust, fear, and avoidance. It's involuntary
Oh, random American.
and not easy to shut off once it's been turned on. The behavioral immune system is best understood in contrast to the regular immune system. The regular immune system consists of antibodies and T cells and so on, and it evolved to protect us once a problematic microbe gets inside us. The BIS is different. It evolved to prevent us from getting infected in the first place by making us hypersensitive to hygiene, hints of disease in other people, even signs that they are from another tribe, since in ancient times, encounters with different tribes could wipe out one's own tribe with an infectious disease they carried.
So think about that idea for a minute, and then think about germaphobes. Maybe they just have an overactive BIS, thing, just saying. Or other things that gross us out. I love how the feeling of disgust is more than just disgust. It's like when you get that feeling of disgust, it's to prevent you from reaching a toxin before you reach the toxin, which includes other fellow human beings, which is why disgust can bring upon feelings of disdain, which then can morph into hate and rage and other such things. And I find it very interesting that, disgust can turn you into, you can almost personify violence if you go far enough, simply by just being disgusted by something or someone. I think it also evolved with like our taste buds and such, which is why certain foods you're like, oh my god, I can't smell it, I can't touch it, because certain poisonous foods would also, wipe out a tribe. And so the feelings of disgust is supposed to repel you. So when it happens in human beings and equate it to, say, a food or a smell or a feeling, it's all navigated by the same system, more or less.
Often the foreign tribe had its own long history of exposure to pathogens, some of which it still carried, but to which it had developed immunity in some way. Members of the tribe were themselves healthy, but dangerous to others. And so we developed a system whereby anything or anyone that seems like it might bear significant illness can trigger an ancient brain circuit of fear, disgust, and avoidance.
And I wonder if that is why before modern medicine there was a lot of tribe wars. Maybe it wasn't just over wealth, women, land. It could have also very well been because of pathogens, and that feeling of disgust or disdain that the other tribe is unclean and must be wiped out because their kind of illnesses could wipe out your tribe. And I'm wondering if before modern medicine, that's what kept a lot of people in the most primitive word of ghettos. The way we think of ghetto and the way ghetto was originally used are two very different ways. So, for example, when I say ghetto, most people automatically think, poor neighborhood. Whereas miniature ghettos are actually just clusters of people within their own ghettoed neighborhoods. It doesn't necessarily mean poor or rich status.
It can also trigger rage. But rage is complex because it's normally expressed by getting close to the object and attacking it. But with contagion, one fears getting too close. So generally, the anger is expressed by isolating the plague bearer. The BIS is thus an alarm system specific to contagion, and I should add, to the fear of being poisoned, which, before the development of modern chemistry, often came from exposure to living things and their dangerous byproducts such as venoms. Thus, it can also be triggered by non-animate things like body fluids of some kinds, surfaces others may have touched, or even more abstract ideas like going to the grocery store during COVID. There is one exception. The BIS doesn't get or stay activated in people who don't feel vulnerable, perhaps because they have good personal protective equipment, or because youth gives them strong innate immunity, or because they know they're already immune, or because they're seriously misled or delusional about the reality of the disease.
Now, what's interesting about this means that people are going to be easily manipulated by it, and that's kind of what he's getting at while he's explaining this kind of archaic system in our minds that were used during self-preservation. He's also hinting at the fact that not only does it trigger a fight, flight, freeze, but that it can be manipulated in a sense. So, but what I find really interesting about his argument is a lot of the people that were forced to take the vaccine were those of confident stature. So, for example, football players or army people. They were forced to get the vaccine, and they chose to get the vaccine versus walking away. And I find it interesting because usually those that can turn off their feeling of disgust for the unvaccinated would be those that have confidence because either they know they're going to surpass it because they're young and healthy, or because they know they have abilities to overcome said thing. Whereas vulnerable people or anxious people, frightened people, generally get sucked into these idea pathogens, or sucked into the idea that the unvaccinated are those where they should focus their rage at, because the disgust mechanisms which makes avoidance, because you're not able to avoid those people because everybody has to go to the grocery store, everybody has to do things, social activities, etc. And because you don't know who is who unless they're named and shamed online, you feel more exposed. What I do find most interesting about his findings, however, is that the ones that are on Twitter, or the ones that are completely saturated in social media, there are confident folk that do that, but the most people that rely on the saturation of social media, or the most people that rely on Twitter and such to make themselves feel better with likes, on an individual basis, and usually personally, don't have confidence. They don't have that strong sense of self. And they kind of, they seek that from the majority of people that go on there and share and like, and they get internet famous, whatever. So a lot of the people that are filled with rage and kind of disdain for these people that are announcing it the most are those that have the lowest confidence and the highest vulnerability. I think with the day and age with the internet, we are seeing a lot more of those people than we would somebody who has a strong sense of self and confidence, because the ones that are confident go out and do things, whereas the ones that are not stay behind their screens and then look for ways to fill the empty. If you guys are getting my meaning.
For everyone else, though, what might trigger the system is rather plastic. But once triggered, the system is involuntary.
I want you guys to remember that. Involuntary. So if these findings that we do have a behavioral immune system in our heads that we're meant to prevent the problem before we get to the problem, I want you guys to remember that it's involuntary. And the reason why I'm playing this on our podcast is for one specific reason. It's because it brought a little bit of enlightenment to it. COVID has divided people quicker, faster, at lightning speed than stuff like race and sexuality did. COVID divided everybody with a firm line drawn in the sand. The vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. And with that feeling of disgust and disdain, that leads to rage. Note that the system is not voluntary. It's involuntary. And unless you have a really good self-awareness, you're not really going to realize you're doing it. So some of the people that we meet that are saying, I hope you get COVID and die, I want you to remember the statement, this is not voluntary.
Well, this is the thing though. Like, we've covered racism over in the Western world for years, but the thing we haven't covered for a really long time is classism.
Yeah.
Because we don't really, I mean, we have it, but it's not the same thing as it is in a third world country. Classism here is just, yeah, you did well and you've got money. And maybe your parents had money first and, you know, you're posh. But that doesn't mean that you're, as a little person, you're not banned from places because you're poor. You just don't go there because you're not hired there, you know?
Yeah. But with this one, the divide, while it may have started with intersectionality, whether it may have started from no good crisis go to waste, while it may have started to pit us against each other so that we play the fool when it comes to the government, at the end of the day, because we have a behavioral immune system and because it's involuntary, the divide has been created so wide that even I've fallen victim to this, where someone will say, you know, I hope because you didn't get vaccinated, you didn't fucking listen, I hope you fucking get COVID and die. And I look at them and I say, you are a hateful person. You are a terrible fucking person. You realize you just wished I would die. You are a terrible person. And in listening to the, wait, this disgust to avoidance to rage and this system that has been triggered in your brain makes it involuntary, makes me step back for a minute and go, oh, shit. These people aren't standing there actively going, yes, I wish you would die. This is their brains going into fight, flight, freeze, where it's gone from disgust to avoidance. And then since they cannot avoid it, it's like a rat backed into a corner. And because they can't avoid it, and the brain is going, warning, 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 and they can't avoid you, it turns to rage. And because this is involuntary, I now have a little bit more sympathy for these people.
It's not just that. I find that with a lot of them, a lot of the rage has to do with people breaking the rules.
Yes, and they are breaking the rules. They are unvaccinated, which means they are a threat.
So
it's not
same with the mask
necessarily
people. Like if you've ever so I've started an experiment in the morning where I wasn't wearing my mask because it wasn't as busy. I'm kind of short on them. I don't really want to buy any more than I have to. So I wear them on my way home, but I don't necessarily wear them in the morning. Some people don't give a shit, and some people just sit there glaring at me the entire time. And I'm like, I kind of get it. They're mad because I'm breaking the rules.
No. That's the thing that he's trying to explain. It's not that you're a rule breaker. You didn't fucking listen and you deserve it. No, it's literally the brain's immune system. So the BIS, the immune system, was evolved in our brains because our immune system reacts when the virus is here. You have it. Whereas the behavioral immune system changes our behavior to avoid the toxin before it gets close enough to activate our immune system. And it was for self-preservation purposes, which throws you into fight, flight, freeze. It's an involuntary system. So it's not that you're breaking the rules. It's that you probably are the spreader of something that I am afraid to get. And so disgust turns to anger, turns to rage, because that's the neurological pathway in your brain from disgust to avoidance to rage. It's not a voluntary, you fucking broke the rules, you deserve it, karma, oh my God, like, that's not it. It's literally the disgust mechanisms in our brain with avoidance that turn to rage when they've come up against you because fight, flight, freeze kicks in from your behavioral immune system. I used to think it was either because people jumped through 10 hoops and now you're just walking around without a mask. They have to double down now because they went the full mile. They have to double down, and they're just pissed that you're free to not, and they should have done that. I used to think it was that petty. But understanding the full neurological workings of the brain through a behavioral immune system that triggers you to want to avoid. It triggers the adrenaline glands to go into rage. Now, normally, we understand rage as you are in contact with the object, but this is to make you avoid it, kind of like a bad smell or bad tasting food you would avoid eating it because it's potentially poisonous. That's why certain colors of food aren't as tasteful to you. This works in the exact same way. It's kind of like a domino effect. And it's your brain avoiding the problem before it hits you. Which in and of itself is curious because your immune system only gets stronger with contact, yet the brain evolved to avoid contact. That's a puzzler to me. But interesting. But I find that involuntary feelings of adrenaline that pump rage, that pump anger, it brings a new sense of understanding. These people aren't just stupid sheep. It's literally, we stumbled upon something that we haven't had to look at for a long time because how many generations before we had another pandemic?
The Spanish flu was in like the early 1910s, 1920s.
Yeah.
In influenza.
Yeah, but influenza was barely a thing, right?
No, it was pretty big.
Yeah.
So was the pox.
I didn't really know. Pox, that was interesting. They actually combated smallpox with cowpox. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough.
Well, it's because they're related. Like, they're not the same, but they're related. But one's the easier version to handle.
Mm-hmm. And you get full immunity after it.
Yeah. So, like, if you get that one, then, yeah, your chances are better with the other one.
Agreed.
Yes, is, I would argue.
That's the other thing too, though. They keep forgetting that on the world scale, you can't compare that with the pox. You can't, because the pox was a worldwide fight. Everyone got involved.
This
There
is
was
true.
not a single country that did not get involved because that shit fucked up everybody.
I also forgot to share my screen, so I'm sorry. You've probably had to hear this a couple of seconds behind.
No, it's yet again, it's one of those things where, like, a lot of these people who are like, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. I'm like, no, I'm anti-rush science. It's kind of like how I haven't gotten my eye surgery, back when that was a thing and everyone was getting that. And it was like, no, wait, you should hold off on it. Not because it's not valid science. It is. But it's better to let the doctors have more experience with actually performing the operation before you rush in.
Hello, Red Feather.
New science takes time.
And Spunky. Hello,
Sometimes it
Spunks.
takes time for people to become a professional at it. A professional at that specific kind. So any rush science where they didn't give you proper warnings on everything.
Oh, this goes over that, too. You're gonna love it.
One of the instinctual reactions that missed appearing in medical textbooks, perhaps because we've not had a pandemic on this scale for 100 years. Because it focuses on potential bearers of disease, the BIS triggers many false alarms, since an infected person may at first show only the mildest and nonspecific symptoms, such as a cough or sniffle, before they become deathly ill. That's why even a small exhalation or a surface touched by a stranger could trigger the BIS. Were it a medical test of danger, we would say this system tends to err on the false positive side.
In other words, it gets activated and launched at people, even on the false positive side. So somebody has allergies, you go, COVID! Someone has asthma, COVID! They touch a service and you're like, oh God, disgust, anger, rage. By the way, I finally shared my screen in Discord because I forgot to do that earlier. So if you want to follow along, not 2 seconds in the past, feel free, Jen. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I used to get that a lot because I have a smoker's cough, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, me too.
So I will sit at the front of the, to be fair, I do actually try to stay away from entrances when it comes to smoking, just because I don't know if somebody's old or if they've got a kid. I just don't like to be an asshole. That's kind of how I was raised. But, yeah, I have a smoker's cough. So people come around the corner with this, like, dirty look on their face, and I'm like, do you see the cigarette in my hand? I can't breathe that through a mask. Sorry. There's just some things I'm not doing.
We see it firing.
And they don't have a designated area, so, I just pick the path that seems less people go through.
Fair enough. It's open air. People should be less picky. But, yeah, false positives, BIS, good.
Now, on the other hand, if they got mad at me for smoking, I'd be like, hey, at least that's something different. And they'd be right. I should quit. That's actually really unhealthy that I'm still a smoker. But they're more likely to jump to COVID. You're gonna get COVID because you don't have a mask on. I'm breathing in tar and mystery shit. That's on fire.
Oh, hello,
Okay.
New person. I will give you a wrench. I'm sorry, I'm trying to see your name.
John.
Hello, John. I'm sorry. I am more than just a nickname. I am, in fact, blind. My apologies, bud.
When someone drives alone wearing a mask, or goes for a walk by themselves in an empty forest, masked, or when someone, say with good health and no previous known adverse reactions to vaccines, hears that a vaccine can in 1 in 500,000 cases cause death, but can't take any comfort that they have a 99.999% chance of it not happening because it potentially can. Before advanced brain areas are turned on and probabilities are factored in, the BIS is off and running. One of the reasons our discussions of vaccination are so emotionally radioactive, inconsistent, and harsh is that the BIS is turned on in people on both sides of the debate.
All right, here comes the bombshell, both sides of the debate. So we just went over the vaccinated, discussed with the unvaccinated. Here's the other side.
Those who favor vaccination are focused on the danger of the virus, and that triggers their system. Those who don't are focused on the fact that vaccines inject into them a virus or a virus surrogate or even a chemical they think may be poisonous, and that turns on their system.
So now you see the problem? You've got the vaccinated that are disgust, anger, rage at the unvaccinated, and those that are fearful of the vaccines because A, they're getting injected with a minor case of COVID to boost their immune system, or other factors or side effects. And their system is, disgust, anger, rage, and now we're pointed against each other. Sound familiar? This guy's kind of got the answer.
And then you had a lot of the middle crowd who were like, you know what, I'll just do what, Yeah, the middle crowd got bullied a lot, I'm just saying.
You're not wrong.
Center people always get pushed back and forth. Boop, 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 boop.
You know what? If you didn't listen to Mr. Miyagi, then that's your fault.
Thus, both sides are firing alarms, including many false positive alarms, that put them in a state of panic, fear, loathing, and disgust of the other. And now these two sides of the vaccination debate are tearing America apart at many levels.
Not just America, buddy, but hey, nice try.
Families, friendships, states and the federal government. It's even affecting the country's ability to deal with the pandemic, splitting hospital staffs and sundering relationships between the scientists studying it. As of this writing, in the United States, about 85% of people over 65, the age group most at risk, are fully vaccinated against COVID, more if you include those who had one shot. 57% of the overall population is fully vaccinated. But around June, the rate of vaccination slowed drastically, down to less than 1 million a day from 3.4 million daily in April. Even though many more people, age 12 and up, were now eligible. 5 million people who got the first shot had not gone to their follow-up appointment. States started sending vaccines back. Well,
Which is a problem. They're like, oh shit, people aren't getting vaccinated now, which means problem. And of course, we all know how governments deal with problem. Force it!
You didn't wrench John, right? Because they think he's a bot.
I did wrench John. I'll unwrench John.
Okay, 'cause
John,
he's a
where
bot.
are you? I wrenched
Yeah,
you
he's
and I didn't
above,
mean
He's
to.
between red and he's between opinionated Scotsman.
Between Red and Scotsman.
Red says 1918 and Scotsman says that's a bit, don't wrench them. I think he meant bot, but he said bit.
Okay, I have unwrenched the bot. Race is on for who wants to ban him.
Yeah, don't pick on the blind girl. She doesn't always know this stuff. But thank you to the chat. I mean, I kind of thought he was too, but I just wanted to see what happened there, and I actually thought you hadn't wrenched him. So
I did. I try to keep a wrench no state on people that I think are people. Unfortunately, he's not people.
while some vaccination sites were empty. In response, U.S. public health officials appeared to believe that the number of people who would voluntarily take the vaccine had reached a ceiling. The change could be seen from the top of the messaging system, with President Joe Biden switching from persuasion to coercion.
And here we have the problem. You hit a ceiling, and you have people going, we need everybody vaccinated or we can't get back to regular life. Government! Do something! Now, where we got off believing the government could solve any problems other than the problem of what to do with our spare money, I don't know. Those people need to go back to school.
Of the armed services, federal employees, and as of September 9th, of everyone working for companies with 100 employees or more. a category that includes about 100 million Americans. In a way, this should be the least likely time in history for vaccine hesitancy. For years, vaccinologists explained vaccine skepticism by noticing that it largely existed because few had lived through a large-scale pandemic.
Key word. I actually find his point kind of interesting too. In this day and age, we know vaccines that work. We know vaccines that we just give to our babies. I was one of those people that's like, oh, these vaccines have been around forever and every baby gets them. Fuck it, just juice them up, duck. You know? So we'd all be like, vaccines, yay. But at the same time, we've also not been through a pandemic in over 100 years. And honestly, sorry, Doc, but I feel hesitant to even call COVID a pandemic because while it swept through the population like a pandemic, it wasn't really lethal. Yeah, it wasn't really lethal like a pandemic. It was contagious like one, but it wasn't really like hair-raising, holy shit, like more people die from car crashes, for Christ's sakes. But regardless, this is the first large-scale pandemic that most people have lived through in this day and age, and so it's like we should have been like, woo, vaccine, but at the same time, we actually had a high bit of hesitancy, and that's because this isn't
too soon.
Well,
Like all this, like 6 months later, they've got a vaccine. I'm like,
Well, and not only that, but it's not a typical vaccine because a typical vaccine is giving you kind of a dead form of the virus, whereas this was a cloned version of the virus. And it was dispersed a lot differently, and it didn't target the only things it was supposed to target. It targeted other things beyond just COVID. Which is why we're having such a damn problem. We also didn't understand everything COVID could target. So some of the side effects we're getting are the side effects from COVID. Not necessarily the vaccine itself, but actually just COVID. That's why one of the side effects from the vaccine is myocarditis, but one of the side effects from COVID is myocarditis.
And because vaccines had already eradicated so many serious diseases, that it gave rise to complacency about the threat. But today's vaccine hesitancy is happening in the midst of a pandemic in which over 700,000 Americans have died. And a recent Rasmussen poll found that a staggering 1/3 of Americans, quote, believe officials are lying about vaccine safety, close quote. It seems to me especially vital that we broaden our understanding of the history and current state of vaccines, because over the summer, many who chose vaccination for themselves concluded that it is acceptable to mandate vaccines for others, including those who are reluctant to get them.
Now, I have kind of a foresight thought to that. Before I kind of listened to this to kind of catch up on it so I could present, I had kind of a foresight thought about that. So us as human beings are very centered. And what that means is, let's say I get a cold. And it was like the worst cold ever. And it's the first time I had ever had a cold, and I got the worst cold ever. Well, if somebody else says I got a cold, usually upon habit, if I got a cold but I survived, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, you're going to have the sniffles and this, but it'll be fine. Why do I say that? Because I got it. Now, never mind that there are billions of people on this fucking planet, and maybe I'm the exception to the rule, but that never comes to mind. It's like you break your leg and it's like, oh yeah, I broke my leg and this is what happened, assuming that that's going to be the norm. Just because this is how it happened to me, that's my basis to say this is what you should expect. And that's a problem, because there are 6 billion fucking people on the planet. Just because something happened a certain way to me does not fucking mean it's going to happen that way to every other person on this freaking planet. But as human beings, that's our natural thought. That's our natural state. And that's a problem. So those that got vaccinated are like, oh yeah, I got a little prick in the arm. It was fucking fine. You'll be fine. Get any side effects? Nah, it'll be fine. And you think, well, everybody should get the vaccine because it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I got it. I was fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Whereas somebody who got damaged from the vaccine is going to go around saying, nobody get the fucking thing. Because, dude, I got it. And those blood clots, let me fucking tell you. And now suddenly that's the standard that everybody's going to uphold. Which is why you have these two groups of people. Because whenever we have a perspective, we think that's everybody's perspective until it's proven different. And because everybody has that self-centered perspective, it's a problem.
It's also that it was, because it was rushed, they didn't have all the information. Like, I keep coming back to the womb study, but yet again, that's stuff where I wasn't completely keeping track. Like, that was almost 8 months ago. You know, so that's a lot of information that I have to backtrack on and think about whether or not I had issues or not. Yes. You know, because my stuff is all over the place as it is. That's where you would get a heads up. Like, hey, if you have issues with your womb, maybe go see a gynecologist
it's
first.
Not even the womb thing. It didn't target the womb. It targeted the ovaries.
Yeah.
Which is actually, you would think womb, oh shit, cancer, this, that, that's like the worst thing ever. No. This vaccine is approved for 5 and ups. And it travels to the ovaries. Well, your ability to have kids, all of the eggs you're ever going to have is formed in the womb while you're still a fucking zygote, pretty much. So when you're 5, you've got all your nice little future babies in there. And you now have this vaccine. We don't actually know if it just fucks with the ovaries or your eggs. And what if that 5-year-old becomes 20 now and wants to have a kid and there's damage there? Because we have no longevity studies, that's still an answer we don't have.
And that's kind of stuff that I would have liked to have known.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, I'm not exactly young. I don't have exactly that much time. So, like, if you fuck it up now, then it's like, well, okay, well, I guess I gotta kiss that one goodbye.
Yeah.
You know, would have liked to have known.
My daughter's vaccinated. What if she can't have kids?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an unanswered thing. And while mRNA technology has been around for 20 years because of Ebola, it was a different virus and it didn't target the ovaries. So what does that mean? We don't actually know. But anyways, that side rant.
That majority entered a state of crystallization, a term I borrow from the French novelist Stendhal, who applied it to the moment when a person falls in love. Feelings that may have been fluid become solid, clear, and absolute, leading to all or nothing thinking, such that even the beloved's blemishes become signs of their perfection. Crystallization, as I'm using it here, happens within a group that has been involved in a major dispute. For a while, there's an awareness that some disagreement is in play, and people are free to have different opinions. But at a certain point, often hard to predict and impossible to measure because it is happening in the wider culture and not necessarily at the ballot box, both sides of the dispute become aware that within this mass of human beings, there's now a winner. One might say that a consensus arises that there is now a majority consensus. Suddenly, certain ideas and actions must be applauded, voiced, obeyed, and acted on, while others are off limits.
Majority consensus. The science people, guess what? Majority consensus means dick. But the way he's talking about, we've already witnessed that one unfolding, because anybody that's like, I got my 5th booster, they're like, oh, stunning and brave. And the other person's like, fuck it, you know what? I'll just fucking do, let's go. But they're like, cast them off to the gulag with you. Yeah.
One person who understood how this works intuitively was Alexis de Tocqueville. In democracies, as long as there is not yet a majority opinion, a range of views can be expressed, and it appears that there is a great, quote, liberty of opinion, close quote, to use his phrase. But once a majority opinion forms, it acquires a sudden social power, and it brings with it pressure to end dissent. A powerful new kind of censorship and coercion begins in everyday life, at work, school, choir, church, hospitals, in all institutions, as the majority turns on the minority, demanding it comply. Tocqueville, like James Madison.
James Madison, for those that don't know, founding father, Federalist Papers, very smart dude. I think you all should look him up and listen, because he's very enlightening, even though he's very old and very much dead.
Was concerned about this tyranny of the majority, which he saw as the Achilles heel of democracy.
Exact reason why America is not a direct democracy. In Canada, however, the direct democracy of the majority squishing out the majority we just saw play out with the Freedom Convoy, where the minority was like, fuck it, one less stand! And the majority is like, fuck you! And we got bulldozed over, essentially. This being the Achilles heel of democracy, because democracy, in and of itself, without a majority, is a very fluent, vibrant thing, because you have all these different opinions, and at some point, the stupid opinions get pushed out, and the better opinions get pushed up. However, if a majority happens to form, then you don't have that liberty of different opinions anymore, and then you can't disseminate information properly, and you end up with witch trials, burning people because they didn't float, or whatever the fuck. Which is why democracies in the beginning are a fabulous system, but you have to find a way to bust up the majority enough so that you can still have differentiating opinions, while at the same time having the ability to have a vote that the majority of people want that person in. And that was actually a big problem with the Founding Fathers, because they had just seen the horror the majority can bring when it came to the monarchy. And it's why America decided against being a complete democracy. It's in part one, but not completely, because of the fact that in the end, it will always turn into majority rule, which means the best idea stops winning. And what if, in fact, the minority is correct? Well, you're screwed, because you just killed them all.
It isn't only because divisiveness created a minority faction steeped in lingering resentment. It's also because minorities can sometimes be more right than majorities. Indeed, emerging ideas are, by definition, minority ideas to start with. The majority overtaking the minority could mean stamping out thoughts and actions that would otherwise generate progress and forward movement.
Forward movement, progressive, something progressives are not. And that's herein lies our problem. We've now got the majority, because we needed to create a majority to stomp out COVID, because we were more afraid of it than to think about it. We've created the majority. And so what that means is even though we have republics, we have, democracies that didn't necessarily fall into this downward spiral, COVID made a immediate majority, like immediately, because everybody was rushing for the answer they thought was the right one. And all of the minority opinions got scruffed out as disinformation or misinformation or just debunked and this and that. And because they led people to believe that the majority did believe this way, and they stampeded for it, COVID, a consequence of it was we just created a mass majority. What I find interesting is Sweden. Because although Sweden gave us our most annoying little teenager ever, they had the right idea. And this was a large experiment, a social experiment, we'll say. COVID was a gigantic experiment that we got to watch play and act through to the very unseen, in fact. And what we found was Sweden got it right. Florida did all it did in the beginning, and then went, oh wait, oh shit, look at Sweden. You know, we're gonna be Sweden. Fuck it. And they backed out halfway through it. The ones that held on to the majority lockdown are still doubling down and holding on to it, otherwise be made the fool. Which actually was one of the big problems in the Soviet Union, was they had gone so far that they had to keep doubling down, otherwise be made the fool, and they could not be made that. And it all kind of overlaps into the same kind of conclusions, where after this gigantic global world social experiment with things, we had the data that said Sweden did it right, Florida did it right. Those that didn't lock down had no more deaths than those that did. And thusly, lockdowns didn't actually do much except for screw everybody. And when we had the finishing data of that experiment, instead of taking that data and applying it and saying, no, we got it wrong, this is what is proven to be better because we've done the methods, we've sampled the hypotheses, and we've found your hypothesis is fucking wrong. Instead of going, okay, let's go for truth, they just kept going to science. And then someone went, what if we just say the science has changed? The science has changed. No. Which is why I've decided that instead of following the science or the emotions or ethics, no. I'd rather let's just follow the truth. How about that? How about we use science when it's prudent, ethics when it's prudent, but at the end of the day, the truth, no matter the cost, no matter who it hurts. How about that? And as I said, I'm probably going to have to do this in multiple parts. It's been over an hour, and I'm sleepy, sort of, kind of. So, yeah. What do people think of this? Do you think we should do more of this? You know what, guys, in the chat, let me know. What do you think? Was it, because I'm going to save where I am so I can do part 2.
He certainly has some different points. Like, it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of control going on with how they've gone about this. Like, it really did bring to mind the sheeple joke that people use.
Yes.
You know, because I noticed it even just this week. So, like, the beginning of last week, I noticed that there were quite a few people taking off their masks, right? And then as the week got on, it was just they're just putting them back on. You know, so it's a mixture of both. Like, I think the thing with the trucker movement is it brought to mind how many people were secretly thinking, you know what, this shit is bullshit, and just wanted to yell it out.
Yep.
You know, because that's kind of part of the thing, is there are a lot of times where someone will disagree with another person, especially up here, but they just won't verbalize it because it's not worth dealing with a Karen.
Or they're afraid to. Whereas behind a computer screen, all bets are off. But in face to face, it's like, I think some of these people too, they may have dissenting opinions. Like, they may say, no, I don't believe in this, but they may not necessarily be the most confident people or the most brave of people. So they probably either A, second guess themselves, or B, needed somebody to stand up first so that they could stand behind them. Which, you know what, some people are just kind of not, and that's okay. You know, it's okay. It's like little dog syndrome, you know?
Yep. But that's quite a lot up here. Like, I noticed that as a whole, we're kind of like that. Like, we're really easy to bully into doing stuff that we don't necessarily want to do.
Fair. Well, if you guys liked Needlepoint and want a part 2, let me know in the comments, let me know in the chat, hit me up on my Discord. I don't know why my Streamlabs isn't working again. I will quickly post my Discord link in chat. I know it's here somewhere. Where's Box to tell me how to get my freaking... how do I do this thing again? Invite people. Da, da, da.
So just to throw out the irony of all ironies, just because I saw it and I was like, "Fuck you, Freeland." She is happily protesting for Ukraine right now. You know, I mean, she's got a little circle of mask wearers, but like, you know, the crowd behind her very anti-mask. I was just like, that's really convenient that you get to go to a protest that you support. Which I would support that. I don't support our response. Did you know that they're pulling all Russian products off the shelves?
Oh well. I'm not really sad about it.
It's just dumb.
It is. It is. Credible Threat says, yes, let's do more. All right. Wednesday, we will do Needlepoint Part 2. Let me know what you guys think. You know, send me a comment. Credible Threat, what time do you need me tomorrow and where? That's a great question. I should have asked that at the very beginning. Or if you're in my
Turn off
Discord.
Twitter though, because Twitter is garbage.
Red Feather, yeah. Trudeau said, y'all are against authoritarianism. Yeah, well, he's a compulsive liar. If you don't know that by now, I don't know what to say. You know?
You gotta understand, he was wearing his authoritarianism pull-up pants, so he gets to say that today.
Oh, okay.
Because if he makes a mistake, he's got some diapers to cover for it, you know?
What is 22:30? That's 8 o'clock, I think. 10, 11, 12. 8:30. GMT, is that my time? I don't know.
I see. Credible Threat says it's on his time, so...
Oh, 10:30 in the evening. Right. Okay. 10:30 in the evening tomorrow. 10:30. Oh, I'm Eastern.
And I am Western.
That's because you're dirty Alberta. And actually, you're Central.
Still Western.
Oh, whatever. Oh, man, that means... Wait, that's... Okay, yeah, okay. It doesn't matter if I'm up late. I have check at 4 o'clock. Sweet! Opinionated Scotsman or 5:30 EST. Oh, 5:30 EST? So, 5:30 Credible Threats channel. Okay. They're a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll. Why do I feel like that's a cheesy song?
It is, but I don't think we should sing it. Just because we're on YouTube.
That is fair. Okay. 5:30. Credible Threats channel.
Only because I know Disney did a remake of that song, and Disney always fucks over everybody.
There will be prizes for the person who is more Welsh than Drunkle. Oh dear God, why? Oh, I can pin messages now? How do I do that? Oh shit! No way! Alright, okay, cool. I feel like if I'm going to be on somebody's channel, shouldn't I be in a Discord or something?
Unless they have a StreamYards.
Or that.
Yeah, StreamYards.
That also... Credible Threat, you should just click on my Discord link, and then...
Send her link.
I will post it again. Everybody calls Drunkle Welsh when he isn't. No, Drunkle is just on the continent of drunk. Yeah, join that, and then we can DM hook up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it has been the Twinsy Canadians.
Yeah.
Super duper thank y'all for coming
Thanks
up
for joining.
and chilling. Thank you so much. We love you all. Mwah. Canadian style maple syrup and all that shit. Peace.
Here in our capital city, families and small businesses have been enduring illegal obstruction of their neighborhoods, occupying streets, harassing people, breaking the law. This is not a peaceful protest.